news. Is Freud a fraud?
We're going to take a closer look into the controversy surrounding psychotherapy.
To start us out, we need to go back into history to understand how psychotherapy came about.
Let's take a look.
It all started during the time of the Greeks and Romans. Stoicism was one of the main Hellenistic schools of philosophy. These philosophers practiced psychotherapy as they believed in concepts similar to those of Aristotle. The Stoics believed that concepts were simply abstract ideas of the mind, and psychotherapy was used as a cognitive technique to treat mental illnesses. Now let's move forward to the early 20th century. Psychoanalysis was one of the first schools of psychotherapy developed by Sigmund Freud. Freud began to focus on problems that he believed stemmed from psychological causes and originated from childhood experiences in the unconscious mind.
Wait, how does psychotherapy work?
Well, you're in luck. We just uncovered some actual footage of a psychotherapy session that will help explain to you the process of psychotherapy. Let's take a look.
So, Sheldon? How you doing?
That's how you start a psychotherapy session. How am I doing? I was promised a riverboat journey into the jungles of my subconscious. Instead, I get the same question I hear from the lady who slices my bologna at Ralph's.
I'm sorry, I'll start again.
Would it be helpful to you if I told you about my dreams?
I don't know, maybe.
I recently had a dream that I was a giant, but everything around me was to scale, so it all looked normal.
How did you know you were a giant if everything was to scale?
I was wearing size 1,000,000 pants.
Why don't we just talk?
The talking cure, classical Freudian, good choice. If it will help speed things along, my answers to the standard Rorschach ink blot test are A, a bat, B, a bat, C, a bat, and D, my father killing my mother with a hypodermic needle.
Why don't I just start? Sometimes people have trouble accepting accolades if, on a subconscious level, they don't feel they deserve them. Do you think maybe that's what's happening here?
Really, Leonard? You just going to try to recycle Adler's doctrine of the inferiority complex? I could probably get that from the woman at Ralph's. And she'd let me taste some pieces of cheese for free.
People really believe in psychotherapy?
Well, yes. In fact, when psychotherapy was first introduced, it became easily accepted and very popular. Since psychoanalysis was mainly practiced by medical doctors, the public assumed that it was an established medical procedure, just as valid as anything else supported by medicine.
But does it really work?
Well, that's hard to say. But that brings us to the breaking news of today's report. Eysenck claims that going to psychotherapy was about the same as doing nothing at all.
In addition to Eysenck's review of psychotherapy, he is also recognized for his work of intelligence, personality, and genetics. In 1952, he published one of the first comprehensive reviews looking at research studies that evaluated psychoanalysis and other psychotherapies. Due to the limited number of studies available, he concluded that only 44% of psychoanalysis patients receiving Freudian treatment showed any kind of real improvement over the last 5 years.
Wow! 5 years? That's a really long time without any improvement.
In addition, Eysenck argued for an inverse correlation between psychotherapy and recovery, which meant that the more psychotherapy you got, the less likely you were to recover. Because of the low rate of client improvement, Hans Eysenck had a huge problem with psychotherapy, and huge controversy erupted.
While Eysenck began to display his argument against psychotherapy, another psychoanalyst by the name of Hans Hermann Strupp arose to defend his field. As a result, both scientists continued to argue through the publishing of their research. Eysenck also published many books, including The Decline and Fall of the Freudian Empire.
For those of you just tuning in, we have been talking about the controversy of psychotherapy. And do we have a treat for you? We were able to track down a very special guest for today's report. Roberta Russell is on set right now at this very moment for a live interview with Haynes Eysenck himself. Buckle up for the ride of your life.
Dr. Eysenck, I'm very proud to welcome you, and I'd love to hear about what you think about psychoanalysis. Is there validity to it? Why is it so popular, or was it?
I can't account for the fact that it's very popular because it's always been a mystery to me. But I can account to you for the fact that it is not a science and that it is not valid. I think there are mainly two sides to it. One is the Freudian theory, and the other one is psychoanalysis as a treatment. If you take the theory first, and of course the two are connected, but they can be taken separately. When I first came across it, I felt very strongly, now this Freudian stuff is a premature crystallization of spurious orthodoxy. There's really nothing in it.
What an insightful interview! Special thanks to Roberta Russell and Haynes Eysenck.
Coming up next, the good, the bad, and the ugly. How Eysenck matters today.
At Psychotherapy Associates, we're trained to handle a wide variety of issues from addiction to crises. Our goal is to help you see results more quickly without having to spend a lot of money getting the help you need. Contact me, Ely Cassis, at Psychotherapy Associates today.
Welcome back, and if you're just tuning in to Hampton's News Report at 10, we have been discussing the great controversy surrounding psychotherapy and have just revealed a live interview with one of the main forces of the debate against psychotherapy, Hans Eysenck himself.
Let's look deeper into the debate and how it is significant in today's world of psychology.
The good. It turns out Eysenck's research actually forced psychotherapists to ask awkward questions that were largely neglected up to that time. It set a standard that later researchers needed to follow. Simply assuming that psychotherapy worked based on case histories was no longer enough, and outcome studies using randomized trials with control groups became more common.
The bad. Eysenck and Stroop were both biased in their work. It's important to note that Eysenck was a behavioral psychologist, and his research was largely intended to show that behavior therapy was more effective than psychoanalysis, versus Stroop, who was a psychoanalyst.
The ugly. Due to the debate and the controversy, therapists began to develop treatment which would allow them to determine what was healthy for their client, rather than letting the client determine for themselves. Have we lost the goal in therapy?
In the end, a general consensus arose that some treatment based on scientific psychological principles are better than others. Psychotherapists have come to recognize that actual evidence is more important than opinion in determining what works and what does not work. Therapists need to examine the therapy process and treatment outcome carefully to make sure patients were actually helped by the treatment they received.
Thanks, Eysenck! And as a behavioral psychologist, he believed that humans can't just talk about their problems. Instead, through behavioral therapy, clients need to try to change their behavior or environment to help fix the problem that they have.
We hope that the breaking news of today's Hampton News Report helped to further your understanding of why psychotherapy might not be right for you.
Up next, student epidemic because of psycho? Stay tuned.